The security footage would show it all in perfect clarity. Frame by frame, second by second, the entire thing recorded from 3 different angles. But at 11:47 p.m. on that October night, Thomas Reed had no idea anyone was watching. He only saw an old man hunched on the bench outside Grandview Financial Tower, rain soaking through a threadbare coat, trembling hands trying to unwrap a gas station sandwich. Thomas had been mopping the executive floor for 6 hours straight. His back ached. His hands were raw from bleach water. He had 40 minutes left on his shift, and then the long bus ride home to check on his daughter. Emma was 7 now, old enough to stay with Mrs. Chen next door for evening shifts, but still young enough to have nightmares. Still young enough to ask when Mommy was coming back, even though it had been 2 years since the accident. He should have walked past. Should have kept his head down like he always did. Invisible. That was the trick to keeping a job like this. Clean quietly. Exist quietly. Never make anyone upstairs remember you are human. But the old man was shaking so hard the sandwich fell from his hands. Thomas stopped, put down his mop bucket, walked outside into the cold rain without his jacket because he had left it in the break room on the 3rd floor. The old man looked up at him with clouded eyes, confusion written across a face that might have been 60 or might have been 80. Hard to tell with street living. It aged people fast. "Sir, you okay?" Thomas knelt down on the wet pavement, feeling the October rain soak through his work uniform. The old man did not answer, just stared at him like he was trying to remember something important. His lips were blue. His breathing came in short, rattling gasps. "Do not make us the villains. We are the villains, Victoria, and I am not going to let this go." Victoria picked up her briefcase. "Then you are on your own. I will not be part of this." She walked out. Richard sat at his desk and thought about Thomas Reed lying in a hospital bed. Thought about Emma sleeping in Mrs. Chen's apartment, waiting to see if her father would survive. Thought about father wandering the halls of the estate, asking where mother was, forgetting everything except old memories. And he thought about what it would cost to make this right. What it would cost to tell the truth. What it would cost to admit they had been wrong. But some costs were worth paying. Some debts had to be honored. And Richard Hartwell, for the first time in a long time, was going to do something just because it was right. Consequences be damned. Richard showed up at the apartment on Friday morning with his driver and a moving truck. Emma answered the door, Mrs. Chen right behind her looking suspicious and protective. "What do you want?" "Your father is being released this afternoon. He cannot come back here. No power, no heat, and you are getting evicted anyway. I found you a place to stay." "We cannot afford rent anywhere," Emma said. "Mrs. Chen said we might have to go to a shelter." "No shelter. I own several properties. One of them is empty right now. You can stay there." Mrs. Chen stepped forward. "Why? Why are you doing this?" "Because my family destroyed his life, and I'm going to fix it." "You think moving us to a nice house fixes everything? You think a rich man can just throw money at his guilt and make it go away?" "No, but I can give Thomas a chance to recover. I can give Emma a stable place to live. I can start to make things right." Richard looked at Mrs. Chen steadily. "I know I cannot erase what happened, but I can keep it from getting worse." Mrs. Chen studied him for a long moment. Then she turned to Emma. "What do you think, sweetie? Your daddy would want you to decide." Emma looked at Richard. "Is it really okay? We can really stay there. For as long as you need. No rent. I will handle the utilities. All of it. And when daddy gets better, he needs a job. I will handle that too." "Ow." "No one will hire him after that video." Richard had been thinking about this all week. About how to undo the damage Jerome's video had caused. I'm going to tell the truth. About what really happened. About what Thomas really did. "People do not care about truth when they already decided the story," Emma said. "Mrs. Chen told me that. She said people want villains more than they want truth. Then I will make them care." 4 hours later, Richard picked up Thomas from the hospital. Thomas was weak, could barely walk to the car, but he was alive. He looked at Richard with confusion and something like fear. "Why are you doing this? Your daughter fired me. Your security guard ruined my life. Why would you help me now?" "Because you helped my father. Because I watched the real footage. Because you lost everything for doing the right thing, and I am going to fix it. You cannot fix it. The video is everywhere. Everyone thinks I hurt him. Then we will show them the truth. They will not care. Thomas leaned back in the car seat, exhausted. Rich man's truth always wins over poor man's truth. You will say I was helping. They will say you are covering up. Nothing changes. Let me try anyway. They drove to the new house. Not a mansion, but a real house in a good neighborhood with a yard and heat and electricity. Emma ran out when they pulled up, threw herself at Thomas. "Daddy, you are home." Thomas held his daughter, looking around at the house, at Richard, at Mrs. Chen, who had already started unpacking boxes they had packed from the old apartment. "I cannot pay you for this. I do not want payment. I want you to get better. Then we will figure out the rest." Over the next 2 weeks, Thomas recovered. Slowly. The pneumonia had done serious damage. He slept most of the day, barely ate, struggled to do anything more than sit up. Richard visited every few days, brought food, made sure they had everything they needed. Emma was enrolled in a new school closer to the house. Mrs. Chen stayed with them, cooking meals and keeping things running. By the 3rd week, Thomas could walk around the house. By the 4th week, he could go outside. Richard found him in the backyard one afternoon, watching Emma play, his face drawn and tired. "How are you feeling?" "Better. Still tired, but better." Thomas looked at Richard. "When does the other shoe drop?" "What do you mean?" "No one does this for nothing. You are setting up for something. A press conference where I say it was all a misunderstanding? A lawsuit where you pay me to go away? What do you want from me?" "I want you to let me tell the truth. About what happened that night. About the real footage. About what you lost. Why? To make yourself feel better. To prove you are a good guy." Thomas shook his head. "I do not want to be your redemption story." "Too bad. You already are." Richard sat down on the porch steps. "My father has dementia. He forgets everything. Forgets who I am half the time. But he remembers that night. Keeps talking about the man in the rain who helped him. The man who gave him coffee. He does not remember your name or your face, but he remembers that someone stopped. I did not do it for recognition. I know. That is why it matters." They sat in silence for a while. Emma played in the yard, laughing for the first time in weeks. Thomas watched her with an expression of desperate love and exhausted relief. "I applied to 73 jobs in the last month," Thomas said finally. "Every single one found the video. Every single one said no. It does not matter what the truth is. The video is the truth now." Then we changed the narrative. "You cannot change it. Not without destroying yourself in the process." "Maybe, but I am willing to try." But trying turned out to be harder than Richard expected. On Monday, he called a board meeting at Hartwell Industries, presented the unedited security footage, explained what really happened, proposed a public statement taking responsibility for the false accusation and vindicating Thomas. Victoria spoke first. "Absolutely not. You want to admit our security protocols failed, that we fired someone unjustly, that our negligence led to a viral video that destroyed a man's reputation? We will be sued into oblivion." Other board members agreed. The company lawyer laid out the liability issues. The PR director explained how this would damage the company brand. One by one, they voted down Richard's proposal. "Then I will do it myself. As an individual, not as the company." Victoria stood up. "If you do that, you undermine the company anyway. You make us look guilty. You open us up to lawsuits. And for what? To help some janitor you feel sorry for. To help a man we wronged. We did not wrong him. Jerome made a judgment call with the information he had. Maybe it was wrong, but it was not malicious. And more importantly, we do not owe this man anything beyond basic human decency, which you have already provided by paying his medical bills and giving him a place to live. Anything more is unnecessary and dangerous." Richard looked around the room at the people he had worked with for decades. People he trusted. People who were all telling him the same thing. Let it go. Move on. Protect the company. I'm going to hold a press conference on Friday. I'm going to release the full security footage. I'm going to tell the truth about what Thomas did and what we did. Anyone who wants to join me is welcome. Anyone who does not can stay silent. He walked out. Victoria followed him into the hallway. Daddy, do not do this. Please, think about what you are risking. I have thought about it. No, you have not. You are being emotional. You feel guilty about father wandering off. You feel guilty about this man's suffering. But guilt is not a good reason to destroy everything we have built. I am not destroying anything. I am telling the truth. The truth will destroy us anyway. Can you not see that? Victoria's voice cracked, just for a moment. I have spent my entire life building this company with you, making it stronger, making it matter, and you are going to throw it all away for a stranger. He is not a stranger anymore, and this is not about him. This is about what kind of people we are, what kind of company we run, what kind of world we want to live in. A realistic one, a practical one, not this fantasy where powerful people can just admit they were wrong and everything works out fine. That is not how the world works. Daddy, you taught me that. Richard looked at his daughter and saw all his own lessons reflected back at him. Every compromise, every calculated decision, every time he had chosen power over principle. Maybe I taught you wrong. Victoria's face went cold. Then I guess we have nothing more to discuss. She walked away. Richard stood alone in the hallway of his own company and realized how high the price of truth was going to be. Not just money, not just reputation, but relationships, family, everything he had spent his life building. That night, Richard's phone rang at 2 a.m. A reporter from a major newspaper. Mr. Hartwell, we receive an anonymous tip that you are planning to admit your company falsely accused a janitor of assault. Can you confirm? No comment right now. I will be making a statement on Friday. We also received documents showing Thomas Reed is living in a house you own. Documents showing you paid his hospital bills. Are you trying to buy his silence? That is not what is happening. Then what is happening? Because it looks like a guilty man trying to cover his tracks. The article came out Wednesday morning. It painted Richard as either a manipulative rich man trying to control the narrative or a naive fool being taken advantage of by an opportunist. The comments section was brutal. Half said Richard was obviously guilty and trying to hide it. Half said Thomas was a con artist who had orchestrated the whole thing to get money from a wealthy family. No one believed the simple truth. That Thomas had helped. That Richard was trying to make it right. That sometimes things were exactly what they appeared to be, without conspiracy or hidden agenda. On Thursday, Thomas came to Richard's estate. They sat in Richard's study, and Thomas looked exhausted and angry. You should not have done this. Now it is worse. Now people think I'm blackmailing you. Now the video is everywhere again with new comments saying I am a scam artist. I'm going to fix it tomorrow. At the press conference, I will show the footage. I will explain everything. And then what? You think people will apologize? You think my life goes back to normal? Thomas stood up, pacing. You think you can fix this because you have money and power, but you cannot. You cannot undo what your daughter and your security guard did. You cannot make people unlearn what they think they know about me. You cannot give me back my life. So what do you want me to do? Stop trying. Yes, let me dissipate. Take Emma somewhere new. Start over where no one knows about the video. Stop making this into a bigger story. Running away does not fix it. Neither does your press conference. You are doing this for yourself, to feel better, to prove you are a good person. But it is not helping me. It is making everything worse. Richard had no answer for that, because maybe Thomas was right. Maybe this was about Richard's guilt more than Thomas's vindication. Maybe he was being selfish, dragging Thomas back into the spotlight when all Thomas wanted was peace. The CTA at this moment feels almost cruel, asking for engagement when Thomas is falling apart, but that is exactly when these stories matter most. When the rescue attempt fails. When good intentions are not enough. When the powerful person realizes their help might be just another form of harm. If you have been watching this and feeling frustrated, feeling like nothing works the way it should, feeling like the system is too broken to fix, then you understand why it is important to keep telling these stories anyway. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and check the description, not because it will change Thomas's reality in this moment, but because storytelling is sometimes the only tool we have against despair. Because bearing witness matters. Because refusing to look away matters. Because even when we cannot fix everything, we can still show up. I'm doing the press conference tomorrow, Richard said. You do not have to be there. You do not have to say anything. But I am going to tell the truth, and I am going to release the footage, and I am going to make sure everyone knows what you did. Not for me. For my father. Because he deserves to have his dignity too. He deserves for people to know that when he was lost and scared, someone stopped to help him. And that person was you. Thomas stayed at Richard for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Fine. Do your press conference. Tell your truth. But do not expect it to change anything. Do not expect people to suddenly believe me. And do not expect me to be grateful when it all blows up in both our faces. Fair enough. Thomas walked out. Richard sat in his study and wondered if he was making the biggest mistake of his life. If he was about to destroy his company, his family, and Thomas's last chance at peace, all for the sake of feeling righteous. But he thought about his father, sitting in the nursing wing of the estate, asking for the man in the rain. And he thought about Thomas, giving his shirt to a stranger in the cold. And he decided that some truths were worth telling even when no one wanted to hear them. Even when telling them cost everything. The press conference was held Friday morning in the main conference room at Hartwell Industries. Richard had invited every major news outlet. They came not because they cared about the truth, but because a billionaire admitting fault was a good story. Controversy sold. Scandal sold. Truth was just the excuse. Victoria sat in the back row, arms crossed, face unreadable. The board members were conspicuously absent. Richard's lawyer had tried one last time that morning to talk him out of this, warning about liability and lawsuits and damage control. Richard had thanked him and told him to prepare for consequences instead. Thomas was not there. Richard had told him he did not need to come, and Thomas had taken him up on it. But Mrs. Chen was there, in the front row, with Emma beside her. Emma had insisted on coming, said her daddy was innocent and someone should be there to witness people finally saying it out loud. Richard stepped up to the podium at exactly 10 a.m. Cameras flashed. Reporters readied their phones. The room was packed, standing room only, all of them waiting for the spectacle. Thank you all for coming. 6 weeks ago, my father, who has dementia, wandered away from our home. He ended up outside this building, cold and disoriented, sitting in the rain. A man named Thomas Reed, who worked as a janitor in this building, found him. Thomas stopped to help. He gave my father his own shirt because my father was shivering. He brought him coffee and a blanket. He sat with my father in the rain for 40 minutes, missing his bus, just to make sure my father was not alone. Richard paused. Let that sink in. Watched the reporters exchange glances, confused about where this was going. Our security guard, Jerome Willis, saw this interaction on camera. He recorded it. He edited that recording to make it appear that Thomas was assaulting my father. He posted it online. It went viral. Thomas Reed lost his job, lost his home, lost his reputation. His daughter's school found out. His neighbors turned against him. He could not find work anywhere because everyone had seen that edited video and believed he was dangerous. More murmuring. Cameras turning to film Victoria's reaction. She sat perfectly still, her face giving nothing away. I have reviewed all the security footage from that night. Every angle, every moment. And I am releasing it today in full, unedited, so you can all see what really happened. So you can see that Thomas Reed did nothing wrong. So you can see that he was punished for an act of kindness. Richard played the footage on the screen behind him. All of it. Every camera angle. Thomas approaching his father. Kneeling down. Running inside to get help. Sitting in the rain. Waiting. Making sure his father was okay. The reporters watched in silence. Some of them looked uncomfortable. One in the back was already typing on her phone. When the footage ended, Richard continued. Thomas Reed was fired that night by my daughter, Victoria Hartwell, who is our chief operating officer. She made a decision based on incomplete information. Jerome Willis failed in his duty to properly monitor the cameras and then covered his failure by creating a false narrative. And I, as the owner of this company and the head of this family, failed to properly investigate before allowing that narrative to destroy a good man's life. A reporter in the front raised her hand. Mr. Hartwell, are you admitting liability? Are you saying your company wrongfully terminated Mr. Reed? Yes, that is exactly what I am saying. What about Mr. Reed living in your property? What about the hospital bills you paid? Is this part of a settlement? No settlement. I gave Thomas a place to live because he was about to be homeless. I paid his medical bills because he nearly died from pneumonia that he developed after losing everything. I did these things because they were the right thing to do, not because I was trying to buy his silence or avoid liability. Another reporter, from the back. Where is Mr. Reed now? Why is not he here to speak for himself? Because he is tired. Because he has been through hell. Because he does not owe any of you his pain or his story or his forgiveness. Richard looked directly at the camera. Thomas Reed helped my father when he could have walked past. When helping cost him everything. He did it anyway. And what did we do? We destroyed him for it. We made him a villain. We taught everyone watching that helping people is dangerous. That kindness is weakness. That the right thing to do is look away. So what now? A young reporter in the third row. What are you going to do to make this right? I am offering Thomas Reed his job back, with a significant raise and a formal apology from this company. I am creating a whistleblower protection policy so that no one else can be punished for doing the right thing. I am establishing a fund, in my father's name, to help people who face retaliation for acts of kindness. And I am personally committing to changing the culture of this company so that profit is not our only value, so that we remember that we are human beings first and a corporation second. Victoria stood up and walked out. The camera swung to follow her, but she just kept walking, did not look back. Richard watched her go and felt something break inside his chest. But he kept talking. I know some of you think this is a publicity stunt. I know some of you think Thomas is lying or that I am being naive. I know the internet has already decided what happened that night, and one press conference will not change millions of minds. But truth matters, and kindness matters. And I will not be part of a world where helping someone makes you a villain. He opened the floor to questions. They came fast and brutal. Reporters asking about liability, about Victoria walking out, about whether Thomas was being paid off, about how much this would cost the company, about whether the board supported this decision. Richard answered them honestly, admitted he did not know what would happen next, admitted the board was divided, admitted this might destroy his relationship with his daughter, admitted he was doing this anyway because some things mattered more than safety. After an hour, the press conference ended. Richard walked off the stage and found Emma waiting for him. She looked up at him with her serious, two old eyes. Did that help my daddy? I do not know, sweetheart. I hope so. People are going to be really mean to you now. Probably. My daddy says helping people is always worth it, even when it is hard. Your daddy is right. Emma hugged him, just threw her arms around his waist and held on tight. Thank you for trying, even if it does not work. Thank you for trying. Richard hugged her back and tried not to cry. Mrs. Chen came over, put a hand on his shoulder. You did a good thing. Whatever happens now, you did a good thing. But what happened next was complicated. The footage went viral, but so did conspiracy theories. Some people believed Richard's version. Some people said the whole thing was staged. Some said Thomas was a con artist who had planned it all. Some said Richard was covering up something wise. The internet took the new information and used it to confirm whatever they had already believed. Thomas's name trended for 3 days. Some of the trends were supportive. Most were not. Job offers came in, but so did death threats. Media outlets wanted interviews. Thomas refused them all. He stayed in the house Richard had given him and tried to protect Emma from the renewed attention. Victoria did not speak to Richard for 2 weeks. The board called an emergency meeting and stripped Richard of some of his decision-making power. The company's stock dropped 6%. Shareholders threatened lawsuits. Everything Richard had warned himself about, everything Victoria had said would happen, it all came true. But other things happened too. The night shift workers at Hartwell Industries started telling their own stories. About being treated like they were invisible. About supervisors who abused power. About people getting fired for complaining. A movement started, quietly, demanding better treatment and better protection. Richard supported it. Victoria fought it. The company split down the middle. 3 weeks after the press conference, Thomas came to Richard's estate. He looked better, still tired, still weary, but alive. He found Richard in his study, going through legal documents, preparing for depositions. I saw what you did. The whistleblower fund. The policy changes. It is a start. Not enough, but a start. Your daughter hates you now. She will get over it, or she will not. Either way, I made my choice. Thomas sat down across from Richard. I got offered a job. 3 different jobs, actually. All of them because of the press conference. All of them paying way more than I ever made before. That is good. Which one are you taking? None of them. They all feel like pity, like charity, like they are hiring the guy from the video, not hiring me. Richard understood that. So what are you going to do? I do not know yet. Mrs. Chen says I should go to school, get a degree. Emma says I should write a book about what happened. Everyone has opinions. Thomas smiled slightly. But I think I just want to be invisible again. Go back to work no one notices. Live a life no one cares about. You will never be invisible now. That video made sure of it. Yeah. Thomas looked tired. I used to think being invisible was the worst thing. Being overlooked. Being forgotten. But now I miss it. Miss being nobody. They sat in silence for a while. Then Thomas said, Your father asked about me. Mrs. Chen told me. He remembers. He does. Asks about the man in the rain. Wants to thank you. Can I see him? Richard brought Thomas to the nursing wing. His father was sitting in his room, looking out the window, humming something that might have been a song from 50 years ago. Richard knocked gently. Father, someone is here to see you. His father turned, looked at Thomas. His face brightened with recognition that was rare these days. You, the man in the rain. You brought me coffee. I did, sir. How are you feeling? Better now. I was cold that night. So cold. But you stayed with me. Why did you stay? Because you needed help. And I could help. That is all. His father nodded like that made perfect sense. My son tells me you got in trouble. For helping me. That is wrong. You should not get in trouble for helping. It is okay now, sir. I am okay. Good. Good. His father looked at Richard. You helped him. You fixed it. I tried, father. Good boy. Always help people who help others. That is the rule. His father turned back to Thomas. Will you come visit me again? I get lonely here. I will, sir. I promise. They left his father humming by the window. Thomas was quiet all the way back to the main house. At the door, he stopped. He is lucky to have you. To have someone who cares. I'm lucky to have him. Even like this. Even when he forgets everything else. Richard paused. Thomas, I cannot give you back what you lost. Cannot undo the video or the damage. But I can give you options. Time. Resources. Whatever you need to figure out what comes next. Why? You already did your press conference. Cleared your conscience. You do not owe me anything more. Yes, I do. I owe you the chance my father never gave me. The chance to choose who you want to be instead of who circumstances force you to become. Thomas thought about that. Then he nodded. Okay, I will think about it. But I'm not taking handouts. Whatever I do next, I earn it. Fair enough. A call to action moment now, perhaps strange in its placement, but essential. Because this story is about what happens after the rescue, after the press conference, after the truth comes out. It is about the slow, hard work of rebuilding. And if you have stayed this long, if you have watched this entire journey, then you understand that change does not happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in the small choices we make every day. The decision to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. The decision to leave a comment about your own experience with injustice or kindness. The decision to subscribe so you can keep seeing these stories. Keep remembering that people matter. The decision to check the description for resources about fighting wrongful termination or helping people in your community. These small acts of engagement, they matter. They build the community that makes larger change possible. So take a moment. Do those small things. Let this story be more than just entertainment. Let it be a catalyst. 6 months later, the world looked different. Thomas had enrolled in online classes, working toward a degree in social work. He still lived in Richard's house, But he paid rent now, insisted on it, a small amount that he could afford with a part-time job he took at a non-profit that helped people facing workplace retaliation. Emma was thriving in her new school, making friends, learning to trust that good things could stay good. Richard's relationship with Victoria was still fractured, but they were talking again. Small conversations about business. Careful topics that avoided the gap between them. She had not forgiven him. He had not asked her to. But they were learning to exist in the same space, and that was something. The Hartwell Foundation, named after Richard's father, now provided legal aid and financial support to people who faced retaliation for helping others. It had helped 37 people in 6 months. Small numbers, maybe, but 37 lives that might have been destroyed. 37 people who did the right thing and did not lose everything because of it. Jerome Willis had been fired and charged with fraud for editing the video. He was fighting the charges, claiming he had done nothing wrong. The case was still pending. Some days Richard thought about him, about how one decision made in fear had cascaded into so much damage. Other days he tried not to think about it at all. On a Saturday afternoon in April, Richard invited Thomas and Emma to the estate for lunch. They ate on the patio, watching spring arrive in careful green increments. Emma played in the garden. Thomas looked more relaxed than Richard had ever seen him, like he was finally learning to breathe again. "I got accepted to Penn," Thomas said. "Full scholarship. Social work program." "That is amazing. Congratulations." "I am scared. I have not been a student in 15 years. I have a kid to take care of, but I'm going to try." "You will be great at it. You are already great at helping people." "Maybe." Thomas watched Emma chase a butterfly through the garden. "She asked me yesterday if we could stay here. In Philadelphia. Even though the video is still out there. Even though people still recognize me sometimes. She says this feels like home now." "What did you tell her?" "I told her we could stay as long as she wants. As long as it feels safe." Thomas looked at Richard. "You did that. Made it safe. Made it possible for her to feel home somewhere again. That is worth more than any press conference or any fund. You gave my daughter her childhood back." Richard felt his throat tighten. "I gave her a house. You gave her everything else." They sat in comfortable silence. After a while, Richard's father came out to the patio, accompanied by his nurse. He saw Thomas and smiled. "The man in the rain. You came back." "I did, sir. I brought my daughter. Emma, come meet Mr. Hartwell." Emma ran over, polite and curious. Richard's father looked at her with the same gentle confusion he looked at everything now. "You have your father's eyes. Kind eyes." "Thank you, sir. Your father is a good man. He helped me when I was lost. Do you know what that means? To help someone when you do not have to. My daddy says it means you are human. That it is not special. It is just what people do. Your daddy is right. And also wrong. It should be what people do. But it is not always. So when someone does it anyway, that is special." Richard's father touched Thomas's shoulder. "Thank you for staying with me in the rain. I do not remember much anymore, but I remember that. I remember not being alone." Thomas's eyes got bright. "You are welcome, sir. Anytime." Later, after Thomas and Emma had left, after his father had gone back to his room, Richard sat in his study and thought about everything that had changed. The company was different now, more careful about how it treated people, more aware that every decision had human consequences. His relationship with Victoria was different, honest in a way it had never been before, even if that honesty hurt. His relationship with his father was different, shaped by loss but also by a strange kind of grace. And he was different. He looked at people differently now. Noticed the ones who cleaned his office and mowed his lawn and cooked his meals. Learned their names. Asked about their lives. Small changes, maybe insignificant in the grand scheme. But they mattered. They changed how he moved through the world. Thomas Reed had stopped to help a shivering old man in the rain, and in doing so, had accidentally held up a mirror to everyone who saw the video. Some people looked in that mirror and saw a threat. Some saw a con artist. Some saw a hero. But what they all really saw was a question. What would you do? If helping cost you everything, would you still stop? Richard had spent 6 months answering that question. Would he risk his company to tell the truth? Would he sacrifice his relationship with his daughter to protect a stranger? Would he change his entire life because someone showed him what real kindness looked like? Yes. The answer was yes. Not because it was easy or because it worked out perfectly or because everyone understood, but because Thomas had stopped in the rain, and that simple act had changed everything. In the end, this is a story about connection, about how one moment of kindness can ripple outward, touching lives in ways we never anticipate. Thomas stopped to help Richard's father. Richard stopped to help Thomas. The Hartwell Foundation stopped to help strangers. And somewhere, in ways they would never fully know, those strangers stopped to help others. Kindness is contagious. So is cruelty. We choose which one we spread. We choose every day, in 1,000 small moments, what kind of world we want to live in. Thomas Reed chose to stop in the rain. Richard Hartwell chose to tell the truth. Emma chose to forgive. Victoria chose, eventually, to understand. And all of them together chose to believe that people matter more than reputation, more than money, more than safety. That belief is fragile. It breaks easy. It requires constant maintenance, constant choice, constant courage. But it is the only thing that makes any of this worth it. The only thing that makes us human instead of just organisms protecting territory and resources. Somewhere in Philadelphia, in a house that used to be empty, Thomas Reed puts his daughter to bed and tells her about the classes he will start in the fall. Emma falls asleep smiling, dreaming of a future that feels possible again. Mrs. Chen waters plants on the porch, humming old songs, grateful for the unexpected family she has found. And Richard Hartwell sits in his study, looking at a photograph of his father from 50 years ago, back when his mind was sharp and his future was unlimited, and thinks about the man his father became in those last clear moments in the rain, dependent and afraid but not alone, because someone stopped. Because someone always stops. Not always. Not everyone. But someone. And that someone changes everything. Thomas had seen this before. Hypothermia. His wife had been a nurse before the drunk driver took her. She used to tell him the signs. Confusion, shallow breathing, loss of coordination. This man was in trouble. We need to get you warm. Thomas pulled off his own shirt, leaving just his undershirt, and wrapped it around the old man's shoulders. Then he picked up the fallen sandwich, brushed off the date, and pressed it back into those shaking hands. Eat. You need calories. Burns as heat. The old man blinked at him. Something focused in his eyes, just for a moment. You are getting wet, he whispered. I will dry. You eat. Thomas stewed and ran back inside, past the security desk where Jerome was reading his phone and not paying attention, past the elevators, up 3 flights of stairs because waiting felt wrong. He grabbed his jacket, then ransacked the break room. Found someone's leftover coffee in the pot, still barely warm. Grabbed a wool blanket from the emergency supplies, the one they kept for fire drills. When he got back outside, the old man had eaten half the sandwich. Good sign. Thomas wrapped the blanket around him, pressed the cup of coffee into his hands. Small sips. Not too fast. I can call someone, Thomas said, pulling out his phone. The screen was cracked, held together with tape, but it worked. Ambulance. Shelter. You have family. The old man shook his head, took another sip of coffee. His color was coming back a little. No family. No one. Thomas understood that feeling. After Claire died, her parents had blamed him. Said he should have been driving that night instead of her. His own parents were gone years ago. Just him and Emma now, against everything. He sat down on the bench next to the old man, rain still falling, and waited. Made sure he kept drinking the coffee. Made sure he stayed wrapped in the blanket. They did not talk much. The old man seemed confused about where he was. Kept asking if this was Hartford or Providence. Thomas just answered gently. Kept him grounded. Told him it was Tuesday. Told him they were in Philadelphia. Told him he was safe. At 12:20 a.m., Thomas realized his shift had ended 20 minutes ago. If he missed the 12:30 bus, the next one did not come until 2 a.m. But the old man was still shivering, still disoriented, and Thomas could not leave him alone out here. Could not walk away from someone who needed help. Just like he had not walked away that night 2 years ago when he found a teenager passed out in the bathroom at the community center, overdosed on something that was killing him. Thomas had done CPR until the paramedics came. The kid lived. His family never said thank you. But that was okay. That was not why you help people. If you are watching this from somewhere in the world, take a moment and leave a comment telling us where you are. It is strange how we can all be so far apart, living such different lives. Yet somehow these stories connect us. Thomas sat on that bench, alone with a stranger, and had no idea that across the city, in hundreds of homes, people would eventually hear about this moment. That his loneliness, his simple act of kindness, would matter to someone beyond that rainy street corner. So go ahead and comment your location. Let us know this story reached you, wherever you are, because connection matters, even when we feel invisible. At 12:35 a.m., a black car pulled up to the curb. Sleek, expensive, with a driver in a press suit who got out and opened the back door. A woman stepped out, tall and sharp in a business coat, her expression pure ice. "What are you doing?" She walked straight to Thomas, her heels clicking on the wet pavement. "Why is my father sitting in the rain?" Thomas stood up, confused. "Your father? I found him here. He was hypothermic. I was helping him." "Helping?" She looked at Thomas like he was something stuck to her shoe. "You took his clothes off. You wrapped him in a blanket. Jerome, call the police." "What?" "No, I gave him my shirt because he was freezing. I was keeping him warm until someone came." Thomas felt panic rising in his chest. He was in trouble. "I was helping. Jerome saw you on the cameras." The woman pulled out her phone, showed Thomas a screenshot. It showed him kneeling in front of the old man, close, hands near the old man's shoulders. From that angle, it looked like something else. "Something wrong. That is not what happened. I was wrapping the blanket." He was shaking. He could barely hold the coffee. Thomas looked at the old man, desperate. Tell her I was helping you." The old man stared at Thomas with those clouded eyes. Blinked slowly. "I do not remember. Where am I? Is this Hartford?" "Father has dementia," the woman said coldly. "He wanders. We have been looking for him for 3 hours. And we find him here, with you, half-dressed, confused." She turned to Jerome, who had come outside with his phone already recording. "You are fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. If you come near this building or my father again, I will have you arrested." Thomas opened his mouth to argue, to explain, to defend himself. But he had learned a long time ago that men who looked like him, who worked jobs like his, did not win arguments with women who looked like her. Women who had lawyers and money and power. He looked at the old man one more time. The old man who was drinking the coffee Thomas had brought him, wrapped in the blanket Thomas had given him, wearing the shirt Thomas had pulled off his own back. The old man who could not remember anything, could not save him. Thomas picked up his mop bucket from where he had left it inside the door, walked past Jerome, past the woman with her ice eyes, past the expensive car and the driver who would not meet his gaze. The rain had stopped, but he was soaked through. Freezing now. The irony was not lost on him. The 12:30 bus was gone. He started walking. Had $17 in his wallet. Not enough for a cab. The walk home would take 2 hours. Emma would be scared when he did not come home on time. Mrs. Chen would stay. She always did. But Emma would worry. Would think something bad had happened to Daddy like it happened to Mommy. Thomas walked through empty streets, shaking from cold and shock and the sudden understanding of what had just happened. He had stopped to help. He had done everything right. And now he was unemployed. Now he was the kind of person security guards took pictures of. The kind of person who got called dangerous. Behind him, if he had turned around, he would have seen the old man watching him walk away. Would have seen something sharpen in those clouded eyes, just for a moment. Would have seen him reach up and touch the shirt wrapped around his shoulders, feel the name tag still pinned there. Thomas Reed. Custodial Services. But Thomas did not turn around. He just walked home through the dark, thinking about how he was going to tell Emma they had to skip breakfast this week. How he was going to explain to the landlord that rent would be late. How he was going to find another job when this one would not give him a reference, when the next place called and asked why he left. He had stopped to help. That was all. He had stopped to help a shivering old man in the rain. And now, in a way he could not yet understand, his life was over. 18 months ago, Thomas Reed had been a different person. Not better, not worse, just different. He had worked the same janitor job at Grandview Financial, but then it had felt temporary. A bridge between Claire's hospital bills and whatever came next. They had plans, him and Claire and little Emma. Actual plans. Claire was going to finish a nursing degree. Thomas was taking online classes in IT. They were going to move out of the apartment with the broken heating and the landlord who never fixed anything. Get a place with a yard where Emma could play. Then came the night Claire worked a double shift at the hospital. Too tired to drive, but too stubborn to ask for a ride. Thomas had Emma, could not leave her alone, and Claire said it was fine, she would be careful. At 11:47 p.m., Thomas got the call. A drunk driver ran a red light. Claire died on impact. The same skills that made her a good nurse, the same instinct to help people, could not save her own life. The funeral cost $8,000. The hospital bills from her last shift, the medications, the ambulance ride that could not bring her back, all of it came to another $12,000. Thomas sold their car, maxed out credit cards, borrowed from friends who stopped calling after 6 months. And still, he owed money. Still, collectors called every morning at 8 a.m. and every evening at 6 p.m., asking for payments he could not make on $12 an hour. Emma stopped sleeping through the night. Started having panic attacks when Thomas left for work. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman next door, offered to watch her for evening shifts. She refused payment, said she understood loss, but Thomas always left her $20 on her kitchen counter anyway. It was not enough. Nothing was enough. Now it was all gone. Thomas walked through the door at 2:53 a.m. to find Mrs. Chen asleep on the couch and Emma curled up beside her, both of them lit by the blue glow of the television. He touched Mrs. Chen's shoulder gently. She woke with a start, eyes full of worry. "Thomas, you are late. Is everything okay?" "I am fine. Thank you for staying." He pulled 2 20s from his wallet, leaving him with nothing until Friday, except Friday would not bring a paycheck now. "Go home. Get some rest." Mrs. Chen took the money reluctantly, glanced at Emma still sleeping, then back at Thomas. "You look terrible. What happened?" "Just a long night. I will tell you tomorrow." He could not say it out loud yet. Could not make it real. After Mrs. Chen left, Thomas carried Emma to her bed. She woke up as he tucked her in, eyes wide and frightened. "Daddy, you are late. I thought something bad happened." "Nothing bad, sweetheart. Just work. Go back to sleep." "But you are all wet. And you are shaking." "I am fine. Just need to change clothes." He kissed her forehead, felt her relax back into sleep, and then he went to the bathroom and sat on the closed toilet lid and tried very hard not to fall apart. By morning, the story was everywhere. Jerome had posted the security footage to social media. 11 seconds of video, carefully edited. It showed Thomas approaching the old man, showed him removing his shirt, showed his hands on the old man's shoulders, close and intimate from that angle. It did not show the rain or the shaking or the coffee or the blanket. Just Thomas, a large man with dark skin, and an elderly white man, vulnerable and confused. The caption read, "This man assaulted an elderly dementia patient outside Grandview Financial last night. He was fired immediately. Share this so everyone knows what kind of person he is." The video had 40,000 shares by noon. By evening, it had 500,000. People found Thomas's name from the uniform and other frames. Found his Facebook page, his address, his daughter's school. The comments were full of rage, full of threats, full of people saying he should be locked up, that men like him were dangerous, that he probably hurt people all the time and finally got caught. No one cared that the video was edited. No one asked why a janitor would assault someone right in front of security cameras. No one wondered why Thomas had given the old man his own shirt and blanket and coffee. The narrative was already written. Thomas was the villain. That was easier than the truth. By Wednesday, Thomas had applied to 17 jobs. By Friday, he had been rejected by all of them. They all found the video. All asked him to explain it. His explanations sounded weak even to his own ears. "I was helping him. It was cold." He was confused. The words felt hollow against the weight of that footage, the way it made him look guilty. The landlord called on Saturday. Said other tenants were uncomfortable. Said Thomas had until the end of the month to move out. Emma heard the conversation through the thin walls, started crying, asking if they were going to be homeless like the people she saw sleeping by the train station. No, baby, we will figure it out. Daddy always figures it out. Thomas held her close, but the words felt like lies. He had $127 left. Rent was $950, already 2 weeks overdue. Food stamps covered groceries but not utilities. The electric bill was 3 months behind. They had disconnection notices. On Sunday, Thomas went to the community center where he used to volunteer. The director, Patricia, had always liked him. She found him cleaning the kitchen, trying to make himself useful, hoping she might have work. Thomas. She looked uncomfortable. I heard what happened. It is not what it looks like. I was helping an old man who was freezing. That is all. I believe you. Patricia twisted her hands together. But we serve vulnerable populations here. Elderly people. Kids. The board says we cannot have you volunteer anymore. Not with that video. I am sorry. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and check the description for more stories like this. Stories about people who need someone to believe them, someone to hear the truth beneath the noise. Thomas stood in that community center kitchen, the place where he had spent hundreds of hours helping others, and he realized how completely a story could erase a life. Not just his job or his home, but his entire reputation, his ability to exist in the world as someone trustworthy. If you have ever felt invisible, if you have ever had your words dismissed before you could speak them, then you understand why these stories matter. Why sharing them matters. Why building a community of people who look past the surface matters. So hit those buttons. Let others see this. Check the description for resources and links. Let this story spread the way truth should spread, instead of the way lies do. Monday morning, Emma threw up before school. By afternoon, she had a fever of 102. Thomas called the pediatrician, but they were booked solid. The urgent care clinic wanted $150 upfront, cash only. He had $73 left after buying groceries. He tried giving Emma Tylenol, cooling baths, everything Claire used to do. The fever went up to 103. Emma started crying, saying her throat hurt, her head hurt, everything hurt. Thomas carried her to the emergency room 8 blocks away. They could not turn away a child. The ER doctor said it was strep throat, wrote a prescription for antibiotics, said to follow up with her regular doctor in 3 days. The pharmacy wanted $85. Thomas stood at the counter with his daughter boning up beside him and $73 in his wallet and tried to explain. Tried to ask if there was a generic version, a payment plan, anything. The pharmacist, a tired woman with kind eyes, looked at Emma, then at Thomas, then at her computer screen. System is slow. Come back in an hour. I will have it ready. Thomas understood. She was going to pay for it herself. He wanted to refuse, wanted to say he could handle it. But Emma was crying and his pride was not worth her pain. Thank you, he whispered. I will pay you back. No need. Just take care of your girl. That small mercy broke something inside him. He took Emma home, gave her the antibiotics the pharmacist had paid for, sat beside her bed and watched her sleep. She looked so much like Claire. Same nose, same stubborn chin. Claire would have known what to do. Would have made it better with her nose skills and her steady hands and her certainty that love was enough to fix anything. But Claire was gone, and love was not enough. Love did not pay rent or buy medicine or erase viral videos. Love did not make people believe you when you told the truth. On Tuesday, the electric company shut off the power. Thomas sat in the dark apartment with Emma, who was feeling better but still weak, and tried to figure out their next move. They had 12 days until eviction. No job prospects. No money. No one who would vouch for him. The video had taken everything. At 11 p.m., Emma could not sleep. She sat next to Thomas on the couch, holding his hand in the dark. Daddy, why do people think you hurt that old man? Because they do not know the whole story, baby. But you told them. You explained. Sometimes people do not listen to explanations. That is not fair. No, it is not. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Mommy would believe you. I know, sweetheart. I know she would. They sat together in the dark, And Thomas thought about how fast a life could fall apart. How one moment of kindness could become a weapon. How the same hands that had saved a teenager from an overdose, that had carried his wife's coffin, that had held his daughter every night she cried for her mother, those same hands could be seen as dangerous, could make people afraid. On Wednesday morning, Thomas woke up on the couch and could not get up. His body felt heavy, wrong. His chest ached. When he tried to stand, the room spun. Emma came out of a bedroom, took one look at him, and started crying. "Daddy, you are sick. You need to go to the doctor." "I am fine. Just tired." "No, you are sick like I was sick. You are burning up." She put her small hand on his forehead the way he always did to her. "We have to go to the hospital." "We cannot afford the hospital, Emma." "But you are sick." "I will be okay. I just need rest." He closed his eyes, felt her climb up next to him, felt her start to cry again. "Do not cry, baby. Daddy always figures it out. Remember?" But he was lying. He had no idea how to figure this out. No idea how to keep them afloat when everything was pulling them under. No idea how to protect his daughter from the reality that sometimes, no matter how hard you tried, no matter how good you were, the world crushed you anyway. The room spun. Emma's voice sounded far away, and Thomas let himself admit, just for a moment, that he could not do this anymore. Could not fight alone. Could not save them both when he was drowning too. He thought about the old man in the rain. Wondered if he was okay. Wondered if he even remembered that night. Wondered if anyone would ever know the truth about what really happened on that bench, in that cold October rain, when Thomas Reed stopped being invisible long enough to help someone, and lost everything because of it. 3 days earlier, at 11:52 p.m., Richard Hartwell had been sitting in his study going through acquisition reports when his phone rang. His daughter Victoria, sharp and efficient even at midnight, her voice tight with controlled panic. "We found him. Outside your building. With some janitor. Get here now." Richard had called his driver, made the trip from his estate in 40 minutes that should have taken an hour. When he arrived, Victoria was already putting father in the car, already handling everything the way she always did. She had been handling everything since mother died, since father started forgetting, since the great Richard Hartwell Sr., founder of Hartwell Industries, began slipping away into the fog of dementia. Richard stood at his study window now, looking out over the city, thinking about that night, about the footage Victoria had shown him, about the man kneeling in the rain, wrapping father in his own shirt, about Jerome's edited video that made it look like assault, about Victoria's immediate decision to fire the janitor and threaten legal action. "You did the right thing," Victoria had said. "Protecting father. Protecting the company. Men like that, you cannot trust them." But something bothered Richard. Something about father's face in the unedited security footage he had pulled himself. The way father had been shaking. The way he had looked at the janitor with something like trust. Richard called down to security. "I need all the footage from Tuesday night. All angles. Starting at 11:30 p.m. It took 3 hours to review everything. There were cameras at 4 different points around the building entrance. Richard watched them all. Watched Thomas Reed mop floors for 6 hours straight, methodical and thorough. Watched him walk outside and kneel beside father without hesitation. Watched him run back inside, not to steal or hide, but to get his jacket, to raid the break room, to find help. Watched him sit in the rain for 40 minutes, missing his bus, just waiting with father to make sure he was okay. There was no assault, no misconduct, just a man helping another man who was in trouble. Richard picked up his phone, called his head of HR. "I need everything on Thomas Reed. Employment history, performance reviews, personal background. Everything." By morning, Richard had a file. Thomas Reed, 32 years old. Widowed 2 years ago. Single father. No criminal record. Spotless work history. Multiple commendations from previous supervisors for reliability and initiative. He had worked at Grandview Financial for 3 years, always on time, never complained, never caused problems. The file included Thomas's emergency contact form. Under person to notify, he had listed only Mrs. Chen, a neighbor. No family, no one else. Richard called his private investigator. "I need you to find someone. quietly. The investigators' report came back that afternoon. Thomas Reed lived in a one-bedroom apartment in a rough neighborhood. Behind on rent, utilities cut off, recently rejected from 17 job applications. His daughter Emma attended public school on free lunch program. Medical records showed treatment for anxiety after her mother's death. The report included a link to Jerome's viral video. Richard watched it, watched the comments pile up, watched Thomas's name and address get shared thousands of times, watched people call for his arrest, his death, his suffering, all for helping. Richard sat at his desk and thought about his own father, the man who built a company from nothing, who gave Richard everything. That same man now wandered away from home thinking he was in cities where he lived 50 years ago. That same man could not remember Richard's name half the time, could not remember mother was dead, could not remember anything except fragments of a life he used to have. And when that man had been cold and confused and lost, Thomas Reed had stopped to help, had given his own shirt, had missed his bus, had sat in the rain just to make sure father was not alone. At 3 p.m. on Wednesday, Richard drove to the address in the investigator's report. A rundown apartment building with graffiti on the walls and trash in the hallways. He knocked on Unit 2B. No answer. He knocked again. Heard something crash inside. A child crying. Hello? Mr. Reed. Richard tried the door. It was unlocked. He pushed it open carefully. Mr. Reed, my name is Richard Hartwell. I need to talk to you. The apartment was dark, the power clearly cut. Richard could barely see. He pulled out his phone, used a flashlight, found Thomas Reed collapsed on a threadbare couch, unconscious, burning with fever. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, shaking him and crying. Daddy, please wake up. Please, you have to wake up. In truth, Thomas had stopped to help a stranger, and in that moment of genuine human connection, he showed something that had been missing from Richard's own life for too long. Kindness without agenda, help without expectation, the kind of basic human decency that could not be bought or sold. And somehow, through a series of events Richard was only beginning to understand, that simple act had connected their lives in a way that mattered. These moments, when strangers become something more through shared struggle and unexpected grace, are what bind communities together. They are the stories worth telling, worth sharing, worth spreading to others who might need to hear that goodness still exists. If you have been moved by this story, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment about a time someone helped you when they did not have to, subscribe so you can see more stories like this, share this with someone who needs hope today, and check the description for resources about helping people in your own community. Let this story be more than just words on a screen. Let it be a reminder that we are all connected, that every act of kindness ripples outward, that the smallest gesture can save a life in ways we might never know. Richard knelt down next to the girl. Hey, sweetheart. My name is Richard. I'm here to help. What is your name? Emma. She looked at him with terrified eyes. My daddy is sick. He needs the hospital, but we do not have money. He said we would figure it out, but he is not waking up. Richard checked Thomas's pulse. Fast and weak. His skin was burning. Pneumonia? Probably. He had seen enough sick people to recognize the signs. Emma, I'm going to call an ambulance. Your daddy is going to be okay. But we cannot pay. He said we cannot pay. I will pay. Do not worry about that. Richard pulled out his phone, called 911, gave the address. Then he called his personal physician. I need you to meet me at Philadelphia General. I am bringing in a patient. Pneumonia, likely severe. I want your best people on this. Richard, I am not on call tonight. I cannot just. I will pay triple your rate. I need you there in 30 minutes. He hung up, looked at Emma, who was crying quietly, holding her father's hand. Emma, what happened? How did your daddy get sick? I was sick. Last week. He took care of me. But then the power went off and it got cold and he was already so tired and he would not rest because he was worried about me. She wiped her eyes. Is it my fault? No, sweetheart. This is not your fault. Richard thought about Victoria's decision to fire Thomas. Thought about Jerome's edited video. Thought about how fast a good man's life could be destroyed. None of this is your fault. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics loaded Thomas onto a stretcher. Emma tried to climb in with him, but they said she could not ride along. She started screaming, "Daddy, do not leave me, please." Richard made a decision. "She is coming with me. I will follow the ambulance." "Sir, we cannot release a minor to someone who is not family. Her father is unconscious. She is no one else. I am taking responsibility for her." The paramedics looked uncertain, but Emma grabbed Richard's hand. "Please, I do not want to be alone." Richard nodded to the paramedics. "I will handle this. Go." He led Emma to his car. She climbed into the back seat, silent now, just tears running down her face. Richard's driver looked at him questioningly. "Philadelphia General. Fast." They followed the ambulance through the city. Richard glanced back at Emma. She was so small, so scared. Reminded him of Victoria at that age, before she learned to be hard, before the business took everything soft out of her. "Emma, do you have anyone else? Grandparents? Aunts or uncles?" "Just Mrs. Chen next door. But she is old. She cannot take care of me all the time." Emma stayed out the window. "My mommy died. Car accident. Now it is just me and Daddy. But if Daddy dies too, then I will be alone." "Your daddy is not going to die. I promise." "You cannot promise that. Nobody can promise that." She looked at Richard with eyes too old for her age. Mommy was supposed to come home. She promised. But she did not. Richard had no answer for that. Had no comfort to offer a child who already understood how fragile promises were. So he just sat there, and they drove to the hospital in silence. At Philadelphia General, Richard's physician was already waiting. They took Thomas straight to intensive care. Pneumonia, severe dehydration, exhaustion. His body had been pushed past its limits. Another day, maybe two, and he would have died on that couch with his daughter watching. Richard sat with Emma in the waiting room. She had not let go of his hand. "I called Mrs. Chen," Richard said. "She is on her way." "Okay." Emma leaned against his arm, exhausted. "Why are you helping us?" "Because your father helped my father. When he did not have to. When it cost him everything." "You are the old man's son? The one who got Daddy fired?" "Yes." "Then this is your fault. All of it. The video and the job and the money, and now Daddy is sick because of you." Her voice was not angry, just stating facts. "You hurt us. I know, and I am going to fix it." "Ow! You cannot give Mommy back. You cannot make Daddy not sick. You cannot make people stop saying he is bad." Emma pulled her hand away from his. "You cannot fix everything just because you are rich." "You are right. I cannot fix everything. But I can fix some things. And I am going to try." Mrs. Chen arrived an hour later, breathless and worried. She hugged Emma, then turned to Richard. "Who are you?" "Richard Hartwell. I found Thomas unconscious. I brought him here." "Hartwell." Mrs. Chen's face went hard. "Your company fired him. Your security guard ruined his life." "I know, and I'm going to make it right." "Make it right? You people destroyed him. He saved your father and you destroyed him for it." Mrs. Chen held Emma close. "Money cannot fix this." "Maybe not, but I'm going to try anyway." Richard stayed at the hospital all night. Watched doctors work on Thomas. Watched Emma sleep in Mrs. Chen's lap. Watched the sun come up over Philadelphia. And thought about how many times he had made decisions just like Victoria's. How many times he had protected the company first, asked questions later. How many Thomas Reeds he had crushed without ever knowing their names. At 7 a.m., the doctor came out. "He is stable. The pneumonia is severe, but we caught it in time. He will need to stay here at least a week, maybe two. After that, he will need rest, proper nutrition, a safe place to recover. He will have it. All of it. I will handle everything." The doctor looked at Richard curiously. "Are you family?" "No, but I owe him a debt, and I always pay my debts." Richard went home at noon, slept for a few hours, woke up and called Victoria into his office. She came in with a briefcase and her armor, ready for business. "Father is asking for you. We need to talk about Thomas Reed." Victoria's face went cold. "The janitor, what about him?" "He did not assault Father. He was helping him. I reviewed all the security footage. Jerome edited the video to make it look like something it was not. Jerome was protecting Father. Jerome was protecting himself. He was supposed to be watching the cameras. He was on his phone. Thomas is the one who actually helped. Victoria sat down, crossed her legs, looked at Richard like he was a problem to solve. So what? We already fired him. What do you want me to do? Hire him back. After that video went viral, the board would never approve it. I do not care what the board approves. We destroyed that man's life for doing the right thing. He is in the hospital right now because of us. Because of us. Richard, he is in the hospital because he made poor choices. We did not force him to lose his apartment or ignore his health. That is on him. He lost his apartment because we fired him. He ignored his health because he was taking care of his daughter. He made sacrifices because he is a good father. And we punished him for helping our father. Victoria stood up. You are being emotional. This is business. We made a decision based on the information we had. If that information was incomplete, that is unfortunate, but it does not change our liability. If we admit we were wrong now, if we try to help him, it opens us up to lawsuits. It makes us look negligent. I do not care how it looks. I care about what is right. Right? Since when do you care about right? You have made hundreds of decisions just like this. You have fired people for less. You have shut down divisions and laid off thousands and never lost sleep. Why is this different? Richard looked at his daughter and saw himself. So what he had become. So what she was becoming. Because I watched him sit in the rain with father for 40 minutes. Because he gave father his own shirt. Because he missed his bus and lost his job and ruined his life. And he did it all without thinking about the cost. And I realized that somewhere along the way, I forgot what that looks like. I forgot what it means to help someone just because they need help. That is very touching. But it does not change reality. We cannot help him without exposing ourselves legally. My advice, as your chief operating officer and your daughter, is to let this go. Pay his hospital bills if it makes you feel better. Write him a check. But do not make this public. Do not try to fix this.